No.
No. So go over to clips. Go over to clips 1. And then
Keep it your voice down. I'm going to give this cue. 1 minute to air. Live stream has started. 1 minute to air. Live stream has started.
right, you click it from there. Yeah.
Thirty seconds.
Good afternoon. I want to call this work session of the Durham City Council to order at 1 o'clock on Thursday, November 18th. And I certainly want to welcome everyone here today, my wonderful colleagues, our great city staff, and anyone who may be with us today in person or also listening in any form. We're really glad to have you with us. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Schul.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freelon. Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Reese.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, we'll now move to announcements by members of the council. Any announcements today? Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of us had some nice things we wanted to say about you. This is the last meeting you'll chair with us. Intended to say some stuff Monday night, but it got a little late, as you may recall. So I thought this would be a good time to share some thoughts about your service to the city. You know, I'm going to talk mostly about what you've meant to me as a friend and a mentor, although that's obviously not the most important story to be told about you. But I don't have the skill set to write the history of what you've contributed to our city. But I do know, Mr. Mayor, that for the last 2,172 days, it's been the highest privilege of my public life to serve alongside you as a member of this council. Over the course of those 2,172 days, you've taught me so much: how to prepare for meetings and work sessions the right way, how to show up for folks in our community, like physically be with them during difficult moments and wonderful moments and lots of moments in between, how to be hard on the issues while being kind to the people, especially our amazing city staff, a lesson I've learned over the years. And maybe most important of all, how to work hard to bring people together around a progressive public policy agenda, the concrete results of which are making this city, even today, even as we sit here this afternoon, are truly making this city we love a city for all. But the thing I'll remember most, perhaps my favorite thing you ever taught me, Mr. Mayor, summed up by a print that hangs in my office. It's a short quote, just 9 words, and it goes something like this: "You must be prepared to work always without applause." That quote is attributed to some famous literary person, but make no mistake, Mr. Mayor, you taught me that. The way you've worked so hard every day for the people of our beloved city, heedless of the notice of others, regardless of whether anyone knew enough to applaud you for everything you did for us and for our neighbors, especially over the last 20 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, with the weight of so many decisions, so many life and death decisions weighing down heavily upon you. You just kept doing the hard and necessary work of public leadership in a way that has been and always will be, in a word, inspiring. And now we're arrived at the end of your service as an elected official, and a well-deserved end it is. I know you'll enjoy all the time you're going to spend with Leo and your family, and I'm certain you'll enjoy spoiling the heck out of that adorable granddaughter we got to see Monday night. And hope you will enjoy getting a decent night's sleep without responding to so many emails at 1 o'clock in the morning or even later. Goodness gracious.
Recording in progress.
Awesome to hear. Few have earned their retirement from public office more than you. So, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of grateful Durham, I say farewell and Godspeed and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charlie. I really appreciate those words. Thank you. All right, colleagues, any further announcements? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also wanted to say a little bit about our relationship and working with you over the last 6 years. My relationship with Steve is one of those great examples of how really meaningful connections in life happen entirely by chance. I met Steve when I took his class as a public policy undergrad major at Duke 20 years ago now, which does not seem possible. And it was a required class for the major, and I chose it almost entirely because it fit my golden rule of never taking a class that started before 10 a.m. I don't remember most of my undergraduate classes now, but I have some great memories of Steve's class. We kept a journal where we wrote reflections on each of the readings that we did for the class, and somewhere in my house, I still have that journal with all of Steve's scribbled comments on my musings about Stanley Milgram and the Black Panthers and the King David Hotel bombing and all of these exciting moments in history that we had the opportunity to discuss and learn from. And at the end of the semester, Steve had our entire crew of unruly undergrads over to his house for dinner, where I got to meet Leo and learn a little bit more about Steve as a person and the community of Durham. Because when you're an undergrad on an insulated campus like Duke, you rarely get off. You really get off campus. And so going to Steve's house was a real treat. When Steve decided to run for school board, I put out the first yard sign that I'd ever had in my yard. And I remember I kept it for a little while afterwards because it was kind of a funny design. I don't remember, it said Steve Schul, and then I think it said school board on top, and underneath it said at large. And so we would make jokes in my house that Steve Schul remained at large. And when I decided to run for city council, Steve was one of the first people that I called. The last 6 years, I've had the honor of working by your side and learning from you every day as we've tried to make good decisions for this community. I have enjoyed immensely your State of the City addresses for the last 4 years that you've been mayor. I've saved them all, and I refer back to them when I need a little bit of guidance or support in thinking about where we're trying to go as a community and how to make good choices that are based on a very clear set of values and principles and goals that you have done an amazing job in your time at public service, communicating to us and to the community at large. I think you are an amazing leader. I am so excited that you get to retire and spend more time with that sweet baby, but I will also be requiring you to continue to hang out with me. And you don't have to answer my emails at 1 o'clock in the morning, but I will still be sending you emails and text messages and showing up at your door whenever I have a problem. I have really valued this opportunity to work this closely with you and our friendship over the years. Thank you for your service and for being an amazing friend and mentor. And I'm not gonna miss you because I'm gonna still see you all the time.
Thank you so much, Jillian. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, any other announcements? Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I appreciate my colleagues and sharing their thanks for your service. I also want to thank you for your service to our community, acknowledging a true appreciation around the work you've done around affordable housing. Your focus on green spaces and trails has secured greenways and recreational spaces across the city. You've kept your finger on the pulse for each department, all the city staff, every monumental moment. And even in the face of this pandemic, you've just kept a smile. I really appreciate that. You're capping off a very long career in public service for our city and public schools. And it's admirable, at least. And to say that, you know, you're retiring to Josephine is amazing. And I'm kind of jealous, but I definitely will be keeping you abreast of what's going on in points and times. You've served as a founder of so many pivotal organizations, from Durham's People's Alliance to Crayons to Calculator to Student U and countless others, you're incredibly diligent and hardworking as a mayor, and I really respect that. I think I've pushed you to be even more than I probably could have imagined, and I appreciate how you've taken that. I know that you work really hard to build middle ground and communicating on the hard issues in very clear, point-by-point ways with all of your documents. And I am just grateful for all the lessons, especially as Charlie mentioned, as Councilmember Reese mentioned, around being hard on the issues and not the people. I really wish you the best in your retirement. I do have to say that I've not seen anyone retire, so I hope that it means retirement for you, where you actually get to rest. I hope in a number of ways that you stay and remain a phone call away. I do know that we have a lot more work to do, and I'm glad you'll still be here in this city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deidreana. I really appreciate those words. Thank you. All right, colleagues, any further announcements? Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a Jewish intellect and a black preacher walk into City Hall one day. And while that may sound like the start of a bad and potentially career-ending joke, it's actually the first chapter of a story that has been so impactful in my life. Mr. Mayor, I really don't know what historians are going to say in terms of policy decisions or the nuts and bolts of governance about your tenure, what they're going to say about a gas explosion or a pandemic or the challenges of light rail or the transformative work on affordable housing. That's for them. But what I do hope they get right is the story about character. I hope they get that right. And I hope they get right the story about integrity and just personal demeanor and swag that you have. I want to thank you for the lessons taught even when you didn't know you were teaching them. For the admonition in the form of a smile, for modeling a work ethic and dedication to something bigger than ourselves, and for always having a way to remind us that even on our worst days, it's a privilege to be here. On the most challenging days, there are 300,000 people in this city roughly, and only 7 people at a time get to sit in these seats. Even on our worst days, you always reminded us that it is a privilege to be here, and I will never forget that. I want to thank you on behalf literally of thousands of people, particularly in the African-American community, for showing up, for building relationships literally over decades. Sometimes you showed up and it was to open arms and smiles, and sometimes you showed up, it was to folded arms with side-eye glances and tisk in the audience. But you kept showing up. That's character. That's integrity. I hope Josephine will now have your full attention, but we are going to put a big searchlight on the top of City Hall, and from time to time we will shine a bow tie in the sky when we need you to come out of retirement and return and guide us through some difficult times. Thank you so much, Steve Schul, for your service, for your compassion, and for your example. And now may the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Hagar, bless you and grant you peace. I pray that your territory would be enlarged and that your path would be gentle. And from time to time, just stop in and see about us. God bless you on behalf of a grateful city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark Anthony. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Javiera, Councilmember Caballero, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I didn't even let my students call me my last name. It's not helpful. So thank you. I do not have as long of a relationship with you as many on this dais. I want to tell a few stories that I think encapsulate to me what you represent to me and my family. So the first time, this was right after my appointment, and then we had a massive snowstorm. So there was a couple of days where you couldn't really get around Durham. And Steve asked to meet, and we met, and he asked me, what do you want to get done? And first I felt a little bit like I was getting called to the principal's office, quite honestly. So he asked me, what do you want to accomplish, and how can I support you in getting that done?
And that has been our relationship since day one. For the immigrant community, for the Latino community, you have been an extremely important ally and advocate. You have helped carry that essential work to include some of our most marginalized members and expand how we do government in the city. I've seen you in so many instances, and I think to me this is the core of the service that you do. It is a deep desire to fully connect with people, wherever they are, whoever they are. I've gone on tours with you through City Hall with a bunch of third graders where they ask you how old you are and if you're a granddad and all kinds of terrible personal questions that 8-year-olds have no problem asking you. And you have easily just been able to be with them, answer their questions, and have true joy. And that is a marvel to behold because not too many humans can do that as well as you do. So te agradezco. Thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you for being a dear friend, colleague, and mentor.
Thank you so much, Javier. I really appreciate your words. Thank you so much. Councilmember Freelon.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a few words as well. You know, we really met and connected first on the campaign trail. And, you know, we were talking on Monday about the rough and tumble politics of Durham, and I was, you know, uncertain and a little nervous about how that would be. But you were always so warm and kind and brilliant. And I just really appreciated the rapport and relationship that we developed at that time. Both of our parents were ailing, and that was another thing that I really appreciated. You always asked about my dad, and we had some intimate conversations about our parents. And I know both of our parents are really proud of the work that we've done on this council, and I can say, yeah, with full confidence that they're smiling down on us and down on you for sure. So yeah, just to reiterate some things that I said on Monday, just you've been a wonderful mentor and a father figure for the city of Durham and for me personally. So I really appreciate that. And one other thing, really quick thing I want to add, you made me think during your remarks on Friday, it was funny. Did y'all notice how when he was doing his remarks, he was just passing like page after page after page? I was like, how long was this thing gonna be if we hadn't heard from all those other people? But you said one thing that really struck a chord with me. It was something I had thought about earlier in the day, which is about the paradigm shift that's happening in Durham and nationally around the leadership of Black women. And I just wanted to put a point and kind of underline that, because you named a lot of Black women who rightfully are reclaiming political power in Durham, and we see that with our mayor-elect Elaine O'Neill, and of course with the legacy of Marianne Black and Coracle McFadden, and many of the other folks that you mentioned on Monday. But I also wanted to raise up a torch for the community organizers who have been such an important part of my service here. You know, the women that we see every week here, it's Constance Wright and Vanessa Evans, Alexis John from Bragtown, Miss Bonita Green from Merrickmore. There are just so many incredible Black women for whom they've really been kind of the glue for the advocacy efforts that have really pushed forward the progressive agenda that is the heart of the city of Durham. So I just wanted to say to the Black women of Durham, thank you. I hear you. I see you. I appreciate you, both ones in the community on our staff, those in public leadership, from Ashley Kennedy at the McDougall Terrace Resident Council, Muffin, you know, the Mama Nias and Maya Hunters and Adil Ortiz's of Spirit House who helped organize We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. I really just wanted to send a word of gratitude out and appreciated you for naming that. I thought that was really important and really cool. So thanks.
You, Pierce.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much for your remarks. Colleagues, thank you. I appreciate it. I think that this is the end of my farewell tour, but I'd so appreciate all your remarks. Let me just say one thing. You know, all these years, I always, at the council meetings, at the work session, I always use our last names, Councilmember Reese. Just now, as I was saying, thank you, Pierce, thank you, Mark Anthony, you know, it felt so different. I'll tell you why Bill kind of mixed it up a little. The reason that I started doing that and have kept with it when I came in was that I felt like when we first came in, we were coming in after a kind of a group of people who had tremendous respect in the community and longevity on this council. I can't remember, you're thinking people who, Bill was mayor for 16 years. Cora was on the council for a similar amount of time. Diane, Eugene, Mike Woodard, Howard Clement was on the council for 30 years. And when we came in and we were all, I wasn't young, but the rest of you all were young, and we were all pretty inexperienced, I remember thinking to myself, I better use everybody's last name so people really think we're an actual city council, and that we take this as seriously as we need to, and we are the people responsible for our city. And so that's why I always did it, and I stuck to it. So not sure if it was always the best practice, but Mark Anthony, Javiera, Pierce, Jillian, Deidreana, and Charlie, thank you. Thank you for all your words. And it's been I can't imagine a better group of people to do this with. So you have my undying gratitude. All right. And I'll just say to Mayor-elect O'Neill, you see, if you can do this for a few years, people give all these great speeches about you, so you have something to look forward to. And we're glad to see you and Councilmember-elect Leonardo Williams in the audience with us. Thank you. All right. I think we've done the announcements, and I'm going to now ask if there are any priority items by the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Durham City Council. If I might have a moment of personal privilege, I would like to, on behalf of the 26 plus employees, 2,600 plus employees that we have here working in city government, I would like to thank you for your service as mayor and on the council for so many years, providing great leadership, compassion, and love for this great community that you've been a part of since you came here as a student. I would like to remind you of our first encounter. We, as local government professionals, sometimes 15 years plus ago, we would kind of stay in our normal, what we would consider municipal service area. And one of the first times I had an opportunity to work on a community partnership was working with you to develop an agreement to open a teacher warehouse. And I will never forget that experience. Even recently, I found notes in my own workspace from the time we worked together over several months to get that going. And it still is active in this community. So I thank you for helping me to expand as a community leader. And I also will always remember the day in the park when you brought the message of this council to me, that you all had selected me, appointed me to be the Durham city manager. So I thank you for your leadership. I will miss our weekly meetings, but I think I'm going to see you over there talking as a resident at some point. And I wish you well in retirement.
Thank you so much, Madam Manager. Thank you very much.
Yes. And I do have a few items for the council's consideration. So today, the city council is being asked to suspend the rules and vote on the following agenda items today at the work session. Agenda item number 4, which is a contract with Legal Aid of North Carolina to administer an emergency rental assistance and housing stability program. A lead time of 30 days is needed for the Legal Aid of North Carolina to set up the city's Emergency Rental Assistance 2, known as ERA2 program, and to begin accepting applications from low-income Durham residents facing eviction. Suspending the rules and voting on this item at the November 18th, 2021 City Council work session will allow the ERA2 program to launch in mid-December before the winter holidays. Agenda item number 5, contract with Benevate Inc., doing business as Neighborly Software for software as a service for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. To meet the award term conditions set by the U.S. Department of Treasury for Emergency Rental Assistance 2, ERA2 funding, it is necessary for the city to leverage specialized software to efficiently deploy ERA2 funds to low-income Durham residents facing eviction and to comply with reporting requirements on how funds are spent. Suspending the rules and voting on this item at the November 18th, 2021 City Council work session will allow the ERA2 program to launch in mid-December before the winter holidays. Agenda item number 13, Memorandum of Understanding with Built to Last Innovations Lab Incorporated for organizational planning deliverables. Attachment number 4 was added to provide the names of the board members. And finally, agenda item number 18, consolidated annexation item 2211 Page Road. Attachment number 1 was updated to remove track changes. Thank you. That is all I have.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Colleagues, you have heard the manager's priority items, and now I'll accept a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Freelon. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Freeman. Colleagues, I believe we're doing it the old-fashioned way. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. The ayes have it. The motion is approved unanimously. Madam Attorney, good to see you. Any priority items tonight?
Good to see you as well, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council. The City Attorney's Office does not have any priority items today, but I would also like to take a point of personal privilege to say a couple of words, if that's okay.
Of course.
Great. The City Manager certainly speaks for our Office of 12 in the City Attorney's Office with her wonderful thanks and commendations to you and your service as mayor. But I would like to add to that by saying it has been such a tremendous privilege and honor to work with you in my first few years as a city attorney. The city attorney and the mayor, I have learned, do have a very close relationship. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it, both the work and the personal connections that we've made. You know, those of us who are career servants in the public sector as staff serve faithfully, no matter who is in office on the elected official side. But it is such a joy, it is so heartening, it is so encouraging when your elected officials espouse values and aspirations for your community that you can also personally embrace. And that means so much to me, that this council speaks to my heart and my hopes for Durham as a person and as a voter. And I have just enjoyed, you know, collaborating with you on the things that will move this community forward, on the things that protect the city of Durham, the public fisc, the city itself, our employees. And I'll remember every minute of it. I'm thankful for your confidence and your encouragement along the way. I will remember those, you know, late night calls till 12:31 in the morning in the early days of the pandemic, crafting mayoral emergency declarations. Those were very special times. They were important times, meaningful times. But I'll carry them with me through the rest of my career. So I thank you. You have been an exceptional mayor. You know, the city of Durham sits at something like number 73 in population in the country. But you are up there in terms of your visibility in the nation, I think, because of the nature of your leadership, because of your aspirations for the Bull City. And we salute you, and we thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your words, Madam Attorney. They mean so much to me. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk.
Well, as Councilmember Reese says, coming at the end, by that time, everyone has said everything. I do want to express my appreciation for you, Mr. Mayor, because I came on as a new city clerk, and you were always there for me. You're willing to discuss anything from policy to procedure to personnel. It was just wonderful, all the support you provided. And I've seen you as a compassionate leader for the city of Durham. I've seen the progressive agenda that's been launched by this council. And I've seen you there supporting everyone along the way. And I really appreciate all of the encouragement and the guidance that you've provided me as well as many, many others in your career. So thank you very much, and good luck with your retirement, and enjoy your Josephine.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. I really appreciate it. So Wanda and Kim and Diana, you all are amazing, and just so grateful to have been able to serve alongside of you all. Truly, truly am. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to request a point of personal privilege to introduce a intern that we've had with the city clerk's office. Her name
Great.
is Amani Fulton,
Uh-huh.
and I will ask her to unmute at this time so she can say a few words.
Great.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Amani, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to join your work session today. Okay, let's see. Can you see me? Okay. So I'm an intern with the city clerk's office, and I've been here for about 5 months now. Everyone has been extremely welcoming, and I'm really learning a lot, and it's been a pleasure to work alongside all of you.
We're very glad to have you with us, Imani, and I know that you're doing a great job. I've heard about that from the city clerk, and we're very, very appreciative of having you with us in the city. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and happy retirement.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just one more point of personal privilege. I didn't want to interrupt the flow, the celebratory flow earlier, but I did want to honor something I said I would do, and I want to send a shout out to the students and faculty and staff at Hillside High School. Last Friday evening, I attended a performance of something called State of Urgency that Brother Wendell Tabb put together through the prompting of students to give us their take on gun violence and racism and all the other isms and phobias that affect us as a society. I want to tell you, I sat there riveted, looking at the stage and listening to those students just speak as, not just as future leaders, but as leaders now. It was a powerful evening, and I do want to send my congratulations and shout out to all of the students there, and to particularly Brother Tabb and the wonderful job that they're doing. Their art is not only entertaining us, they're using art to inspire us and to challenge us to face the challenges we have as a city up front. So thank you for allowing me to do that, and I want to just shout out the Hornets today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. All right, colleagues. We are now ready to move into our administrative consent items, and I will be reading those under the City Clerk's Office. Approval of City Council minutes. Under departmental items, Audit Services Department, item 2, fiscal year end 2021 inventory performance audit, October 2021. Under Community Development Department, item 3, Affordable Housing Implementation Committee report, and this is going to be a presentation. Item 4 is contract with Legal Aid of North Carolina to administer an emergency rental assistance and housing stability program. This is an item that the manager has asked us to suspend the rules and vote on. I'm going to come back to that in a minute because we do have some speakers for that item. And item 5, contract with Benevate Inc., DBA Neighborly Software, for software as a service for the emergency rental assistance program. And this is also one we've been asked to suspend the rules and vote on, and we will do that in a little bit. Under Department of Transportation, item 6, amendment and extension of the interlocal agreement with the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization for the Triangle Bikeway Implementation Study. Under Department of Water Management, item 7, construction contract award to Carolina Civil Works, Inc. for the 2021 Water and Sewer Point Repair Project. Under the Finance Department, item 8, October 2021 bid report.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to pull the bid report, but I would just like to thank the staff for continuing to push for energy-efficient vehicles. There's a ton of hybrid vehicles in that report, and it's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember, for pointing that out. Under item 9, Fleet Management, item 9, Cooperative Group Purchase Contract, 5 automated refuse trucks. Under General Services Department, item 10, Ninth Amendment, the assignment agreement for the Durham Athletic Park operating agreement. I'm going to pull that item. Under Neighborhood Improvement Services Department, item 11, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Fair Housing Grants. Item 12, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Partnership Initiative Funds. Under Office of Economic and Workforce Development, item 13, Memorandum of Understanding with Built to Last Innovations Lab, Inc. for organizational planning deliverables.
Mr. Mayor, would you pull that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 13, thank you. Under the Parks and Recreation Department, item 14, janitorial services contract with Top Notch Carpet and Upholstery Cleaning LLC for the Durham Armory.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to pull item 14, but I wanted to recognize that this vendor is paying their staff living wages and appreciate them for that commitment.
Thank you very much for pointing that out, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for that. Under item 15, Public Works Department, debris management contract award with DRC Emergency Services LLC.
I'd like to pull that, please.
Righty. Under item 16, debris monitoring contract award with Tetra Tech. I want to pull that item. Under presentations, Budget and Management Services Department, item 17, 2021, first quarter financial report, and that's a presentation. Under Public Hearing, City County Planning Department, item 18, Consolidated Annexation, item 2211 Page Road, and item 19, Zoning Map Change, 518 Martin Luther King Parkway Jr. I'm sorry, Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. And let me just say on that there is a person who is signed up to speak on item 19, and Dave Olverson, Madam Clerk, and
Mr. Mayor, the individual who is on the list is representing the developer, and he was here for questions.
Okay,
There
thank
were
you.
any.
You might, I will let, if Mr. Olverson is listening in, Mr. Olverson, I will tell you that we only take up public hearing matters on Monday nights. So if you are listening in, Mr. Olverson, you can leave this meeting and enjoy your afternoon. But we only take up public hearing matters on Monday nights. All right, let me just for the benefit of our new council member and mayor-elect, just say that what we've done is that we have been presented with these items to read through prior to the meeting. Then I read them, and we only, and staff is listening in. If this was normal times, they'd be in the room, we'd be up in our committee room, we'd all be in the room. And then I read the items, and Madam Mayor, like you will read the items. And then those items that council members would like to pull for discussion, that's when people pulled items. And you'll hear in a minute that I'll go through this with the city manager. We'll discuss where we think we are. In addition to those items which council members have pulled, the administration has also got a couple of presentations for us. And so we often also have people who are here to speak on citizens matters. We don't today, but they would also be here signed up to speak. The work session, they can speak on anything that they would like for a 3-minute period, and people will sign up in advance to do that. So the process we just went through was the council members pulling items that they wanted to discuss further at the work session. And then so then they go on consent agenda for Monday night, and we don't have to discuss them again unless there's a need to. But that work is done here. So that's kind of what we're going through. So, and then sometimes council members won't pull an item, but they'll comment, as you heard from Councilmember Reese and Mayor Pro Tem just now. Okay, Madam Manager, what I have is that we have 2 items that you have asked for us to suspend the rules and vote. That's item 4 and item 5. We have presentations on item 3 and 17, and pulled items are 10, 13, 15, and 16. Is that what you have?
That is what I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. Okay. I think what I'd like to do first is go ahead and go back to items 4 and 5, colleagues, which are the 2 items that the manager has asked that we suspend the rules and vote on today. Those items item 4 has several people who have signed up to speak on it, so I'm going to go ahead and hear from them. Madam Clerk, could you please make Larissa Seibel available to be heard?
Good afternoon. Can
Good
you hear me?
afternoon, Ms. Seibel. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'll just take a minute. I'm here to thank you for starting the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. It is so needed. It's been a month and a half since the county stopped taking applications. And there are people who call me just about every day asking me when will it start. And I'm here with Sandra Nelson, who spoke with you earlier in one of the work sessions. She'll speak now.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sandra Nelson. I'm one of the victims that got shot over in Magnolia Terrace. And I was on y'all other section y'all had before. But I wanted to know, when will y'all be able to open up the rental assistance? It is really needed. My check 2 weeks ago was $2.97. And also this week is a 33-cent check. I cannot pay bills like that, so I really need assistance. If there's a way y'all can open up the rental system for us, please. Thank you.
Ms. Nelson and Ms. Seibel, thank you so much. Ms. Nelson, I'm going to let you know what we hope to be able to do. The staff we're approving this today without waiting as we usually would, so we can do this as quickly as possible. And I know that our staff hopes to and plans that that legal aid, who we'll be working with, will be opening up the applications in December, hopefully in early December. Early to mid-December. The manager has corrected me. So as soon as we can. But we're grateful for you being here. And Ms. Seibel, thank you for your continuous advocacy on this. It's really been very important. Thank you.
Yes, it has.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll hear from Sarah D'Amato. Madam Clerk, can you make Sarah D'Amato available to be heard, please?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. D'Amato. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. We just appreciate everybody's consideration of this proposal to have legal aid help with the administration of the new ERAP funds coming through. We are right now, as y'all know, legal aid, we are representing individuals facing imminent eviction, and we have been swamped in the past month or so, particularly with folks who have fallen in between the cracks of not having an available rental assistance program available to them to help cover for the months that they've gotten behind. So it is a necessity. It is urgent, especially as we go into the winter right now with utility prices going up and people having to choose between catching up in order to stay housed. So we are, again, so appreciative of the City Council's consideration of our proposal to help administer this rental assistance, and so that we can prevent more homelessness right now in Durham, especially as we are going into the winter.
Ms. D'Amato, thank you very much, and we're really appreciative of our contract that is going to be happening with legal aid, as well as our continuing relationship on the eviction diversion work. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, could you please make Ajax Woolley available to be heard?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Schul, and congratulations on your retirement. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Madam Mayor-elect, members of council, Madam Manager, and friends and colleagues. Thanks for the opportunity to speak briefly on this item. Since February 2021, Durham County's Affordable Housing Research Action Team has been following the Emergency Rental Assistance Program as part of our work on evictions and DHA accountability. Our organizers have remained in dialogue with decision makers at the DHA Board of Commissioners, Durham Department of Social Services, County Commission, and others with direct influence on the outcome of the ERA-1 program. And like you, we've also had the privilege and the heartbreak of listening in the community to the numerous stories of residents whose attempts to access relief and support from these federal funds have often been grievously frustrating and unsuccessful. And these stories are keys to understanding how the community can reshape its policies and its political culture moving forward to better serve our neighbors who experience periods of low income and housing instability. So of course, we support council's move to approve this item today to restart the flow of emergency rental assistance funds under the ERA2 program. And based on some lessons learned from ERA1, we would ask that the following items be added to the city's portion of attachment A, item B.1.C, titled City Responsibilities. So these are just some suggestions. Upon program implementation, provide a publicly accessible spending dashboard on a new web page updated in real time to show the community the ongoing outcome of this program. Have the dashboard implement rigorous standards for tracking and displaying data such as race and gender, et cetera, that ensures public accountability for equitable distribution of the funds according to the city's strategic goals. Provide immediate training and resources on the ERA2 program for Durham one-call operators to ensure that no one calling for help with rental assistance is turned away, especially when that would be due to lack of capacity involving language access. And finally, add a one-click option to connect with the ERA2 program intake on the city's one-call homepage. So we understand that the implementation of the intake and application process will be the duty of the contracted agency, and we're very glad that that's happening. And we also understand that there'll be multiple avenues for neighbors in need to apply for the funds. However, as others have mentioned, given the gap in applications, during the period from October 4th until mid-December, the change in provider and the challenges with outreach and information to the community, we think that these extra steps are both worth it and within the power of the city and appropriate to its duties under the circumstances. Thank you.
Mr. Woolley, thank you so much. We appreciate your comments. Let me suggest that you send those in writing to the council members as well as to the mayor-elect and councilmember-elect Williams. We're not going to delay this vote today to add anything new to the contract, but we're happy to have your suggestions and grateful for them. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you make Bernetta Reynolds available to be heard, please?
Hello, this is Bernetta Reynolds with Legal Aid in North Carolina. Thank you.
Ms. Reynolds, we're glad to have you, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not really sure. Do you want me to talk about the budget we submitted?
Oh, I'm sorry. We only wanted you to comment if you want to comment. No, you don't need to talk about your budget.
Okay. Well, no, I guess I'll just say I appreciate you guys looking at legal aid to be able to help with the rental assistance program. We've successfully done that last year with NCORE, the HOPE program. So we're excited to be able to help out again.
Ms. Reynolds, thank you. We appreciate you for being here with us and especially for working with us on this. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so let me just say that those people have signed up. Some people are here just for informational purposes. And so if I call your name and you don't want to speak, you can let us know. That's great. George Housen Jr., Madam Clerk, can you make George Housen Jr. available to be heard, please?
There's no George Housen Jr. in the queue.
All right, thank you. And how about Cherie Gilchrist?
There's no Sherry Gilchrist.
All right, and how about Vilma Suarez?
There is no Vilma Suarez.
All right, I believe these were folks from Legal Aid who I had their names on the list, but they were here for informational purposes.
Mr. Mayor, there is a CIU, an acronym. They are representing Legal Aid. I just don't know the name of the person.
All right, why don't you make them available to be heard, and we'll ask if they would like to speak. Hello? All right, is this someone from Legal Aid who would like to speak? I'm not hearing it, Madam Clerk, so we're going to move on. Thank you so much. All right, colleagues, we have a request by the manager that we suspend the rules and vote on this item. Can I have a motion to suspend the rules, please?
Move to suspend.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Middleton, seconded by Councilmember Freeline that we suspend the rules and vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
No. Ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. We will now, I'll accept a motion now. Let me just look at the motion that we need. to authorize the city manager to execute a contract in the amount specified with Legal Aid of North Carolina and to adopt the Emergency Rental Assistance ERA2 Program Funds Grant Ordinance. Can I have a motion to that effect?
Moved as read.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Middleton, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, that we approve this item. I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you very much. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to item 5, the second item that the manager asked that we suspend the rules and vote on. Can I have a motion that we suspend the rules and vote?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by, I think, maybe Councilmember Caballeros. No? Okay.
Silly.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Freeline, that we suspend the rules and vote. Madam Clerk, no, we're not. I'm sorry. We're not. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. We have suspended the rules, and now we'll need a motion to authorize the city manager to execute this contract in the amount specified.
So moved. Second.
Who made the motion?
Javier.
Councilmember Caballero, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, that we approve this item. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you very much, Madam Manager. And I think we all know the importance of this. I want to express my appreciation to the administration for getting this going with legal aid as quickly as possible. Deputy Manager Chadwell, thank you, and your folks that work with you. We are appreciative.
Mayor Schul, could I say something really quick?
Of course, council member.
Thank you. Just wanted to let the community know, because there is a conversation happening about expanding not just rental assistance, but the money we dedicate for attorneys for evictions, and that is a conversation that will be happening in the future. I did not want advocates and community members to think that we are not aware of the eviction crisis we are facing. We know we need to expand things besides just rental assistance. So a contract to expand additional attorneys for legal aid will be happening in this body in the next few weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, council member.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Madam
We have
Clerk.
one more speaker in the queue, Jacqueline Wagstaff. Would you like her to speak?
Sure, on item 4?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Madam Clerk, please make Ms. Wagstaff available to be heard. Ms. Wagstaff, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on your retirement, just to let you know.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Ms. Wagstaff.
Okay, I'm have to get this off my chest first. We don't have a chat mechanism. I don't know why in this Zoom there's no ability to chat, because if there were, I could have relayed my question. I could have written my question in the chat, and someone probably could have answered it. And could you explain to me why there's no chat in this Zoom? And we've, in previous meetings, even though you're open to the public now, you're still allowing Zoom, why the chat mechanism has been disabled. But also for this item, there were a couple of questions I had about the funds, how much money was being dispersed to legal aid. Does a person have to be in an active eviction process to access these funds to help them stabilize their housing? And also, I had 2 phone calls this week from 2 individuals that were facing this problem, and they actually received the money. The problem was the landlord did not want to receive it. So how is that going to be addressed? And have y'all talked about that? There are landlords in Durham, and they're notorious for being slumlords, but they are now saying they don't want this money. They don't want this HOPE money. They don't want any of this money. And one of the concerns that they had is that they have to sign agreements, and those agreements are not specific on how much money they're going to be receiving. Are they going to be receiving all of the back rent? Are they going to receive a portion of the back rent? They're not comfortable with that, so they're not signing it. So people are still facing eviction because landlords are unwilling to receive this money. So those were a couple of my questions, but I also would like to know why the chat has been disabled for this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagstaff. We appreciate you being with us. I'll address just one of those questions, which is the question about the landlords. You're absolutely right. There are landlords who've refused to take the ERAP money, have done so while the county's been administering it. This is not something we are able to force them to do. And I agree with you that it's very, very problematic. Your other questions on the item, there was another question that you had on the item that I don't think we can answer right here, but if you would email me, I'll be happy to find an answer for you. All right, colleagues, we'll now move to the items that have been pulled, and we'll start with item 10, Ninth Amendment, the assignment agreement for the Durham Athletic Park operating agreement. And this is an item that I pulled, not because I think I think that this is they've done a great job operating this for us. The Bulls have, and I want to do this again. But I did want to talk just for a minute about we received a letter, colleagues, from Neil Ghosh from Durham Central Park last week that you all will remember concerning the Durham Athletic Park and Durham Central Park's ideas about it. So just to refresh everybody, and we've talked about this a little in the council, North Carolina Central University stopped playing baseball, and they were using half of the dates in Durham Athletic Park. So that is in itself a sad thing that they're not playing baseball. But we're now in a situation where we have this amazing facility downtown, in the middle of downtown, with many, many opportunities for using it. And so we received this from Durham Central Park. As you all know, there's been a lot of interest in putting turf on the field and making it available for not only baseball, but soccer and other sports as well, and also for turning it into, it could be an amazing venue for performances. And so I'm just pulling this to say, just to keep this on you all's radar. I know that our administration is thinking about this, and I think this is probably now in Bertha Johnson's portfolio. Ms. Johnson, just want to keep it on your radar as well. I think that this is a really great opportunity. The Bulls have looked at a couple possible scenarios for Durham Athletic Park. So I pulled it just to give this little speech. And hope that you all will keep in mind that this is a wonderful opportunity for us. All right, enough of the speech. Any other comments on this item? Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, wanted to say that the Durham Athletic Park, it may be, for a certain generation of North Carolinians and Americans, the most recognizable facility in Durham, because it was the real star of the movie Bull Durham. And when I moved to Durham, it was the one building that I recognized. And so keeping that bit of our cultural history in active use is really important to all of us. And I know that the administration will work hard to find the right answer about how we continue our stewardship of that incredible place. And I know that's going to involve lots of communication and conversations with the neighbors near there about what they want to see at this facility. Really appreciated Durham Central Park's board sending us their thoughts, and I know there's lots of other ideas. Appreciated the memo making it clear that this is going to be a long-term process that we engage in to try to figure out what's next for that, and appreciate your comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Much agreed. All right, colleagues, we'll now move on to item 13, and I believe this item was pulled by Councilmember Middleton.
Indeed, it was. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to associate myself with your comments and indeed Councilmember Reese's comments regarding Durham Athletic Park. It could be such a windfall for us in terms of cultural and entertainment value and community cohesion as well. So item 13, the Memorandum of Understanding for Built to Last. First, I just want to say, I guess in an editorial vein, how excited I am about movement on this particular issue under the larger rubric of our shared economic prosperity plan. Anyone in this city that's ever had any conversation about dealing with root causes, I imagine would have to share my excitement about moving forward in a concrete way on this issue. When we are looking to move real money, whether you think it's enough or not, it's real money towards making our prosperity shared in Durham. So I want to thank the staff. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank all of my colleagues up here who have leaned in on our shared economic prosperity plan and the realization that many of the ills that we face as a city, indeed as a country, are directly tied to economic participation and economic empowerment And I'm excited about this. So I want to thank the staff for moving us forward on this. I do have a question specifically about the first straightforward question, math. The tranches of money I noticed in the memorandum, I think total by my math, 210,000, and but we're voting up to $416,350. So I guess my first question is, we're going to be re-upping this MOU yearly. I know this is supposed to be a standalone nonprofit, but will we be re-upping this MOU indefinitely every year going forward?
Do we have staff who will be answering that question? I see Deputy City Manager Chapel.
Good afternoon. Permission to unmask?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, Keith Chadwell, City Manager's Office. Mr. Council Member, we don't have a final or ultimate definitive response to that. In concept, what we're doing is nourishing and feeding the essence of a startup so that all the component parts for success will be in place with the intent of creating a long-term play for it. We chose this concept primarily because it's a startup, and there are components to it that for the Durham market have never been realized or created anymore. Another abiding principle is that upon its creation, there was a determination that we wanted to create an entity that was so independent in its existence that it would ultimately not be reliant on public investments to sustain it. So we came up with this concept to fund it as a startup, so we would reach a point not necessarily bound by a fiscal year or a definitive timetable, but enough of a timetable to involve that we could come together prior to the exhausting these funds and make some additional assessments so that we can plan for what public investments might be to bridge us to the necessity or to the opportunity that it might be able to sustain itself.
I appreciate it. First, good to see you, man.
Yes,
so the MOU runs for a year. So based upon everything you've said, what might happen at the end of the year of this MOU? We could potentially do another MOU. They could potentially get the difference between 210,000 to 416,000 that we're approving today. What might happen after the end of the year, assuming they meet all of their deliverables or don't meet all of their deliverables? What happens after a year?
Well, allow me to stay on the positive and optimistic part of that, if you might. What we hope is that the product that's being asked for in this guiding the principle of this being a startup engagement will have firm understandings of what the components of success are with respect to the goals of sustaining a long-term opportunity to support small businesses in Durham. So what we're saying in that regard is that we'll have a firm understanding of the costs, the overhead, some of the programmatic aspects, and some of the challenges that right now are open variables. Parenthetically, what I've referred to primarily is an access to capital feature around the creation of an equity development fund, which is not a simple task. And we'd like some definitions around that work so that we can put very definitive kinds of costs on there, married to the opportunities and requirements for the nonprofit to be able to create a plan to sustain itself. Thus, in that context, defining what kind of public investment might be necessary, and at that point in time, make a hard plan for it. It may be, as I talk out of the other side of my mouth, that if something within that area does not realize, that also would further define what kind of necessity for us to participate, and that may be a mutual opportunity to understand its viability at that point.
So appreciate that. So at the end of 12 months, we've spent 210,000, and the roughly 206,000 left would there's potential that we may be spending more even beyond that 206,000 at some point down the road. What does that leftover money represent?
I hope this answer is responsive. The number that we have in the agenda item, north of $416,000, while this is certainly a planning document that's requirement, and it's the essence of the quid pro quo between the receipt of the funding by the nonprofit and why we're providing it. What really is happening is that we don't have any aspersions that the entirety of the dollars available are going to be just for a plan. In addition to the requirements to provide a plan, there's a period of time in there which some of the principles and some of the operational opportunities might be launched and started and realized. This very, very creative organization has started 1 or 2 initiatives already. And so, starting from a base of about $300,000 at its inception, and in negotiations with the city manager and the organization itself, we've added some dollars so that 1 or 2 things that they launched on their own might be sustained, and also create an opportunity that they would have the resource to make sure that they deliver the fundamental aspects of the business aspects of this, the operational planning and the like, and have some room, if not robust, but some room to test fire some of these principles and concepts.
Thanks much. So the additional attachment we received with the 3 names for the board says the organization was formed by and is currently operating under its organizing and inaugural board membership. So these 3 names that we have before us now in the additional attachment, they are not currently serving as board members, correct?
They are indeed.
They are. Okay.
Yes. These are the persons that were recruited and agreed to join us to help actually start up the organization, to create its initial bylaws and form the foundations of its existence. As a part of the business planning process, they will be engaged in all kinds of further activities to expand board membership, put a final and punctuating moment on certain aspects of the bylaws of that service. And so for continuity purposes and other reasons, they will be a part of this until we get, from a bylaw perspective, full tenures of service fully defined and moved forward with.
Got you. So when we say they're currently operating under its organizing and inaugural board membership, these are in fact, this is in fact the inaugural
This is
board.
in fact the inaugural
Okay.
currently existing board today as we move forward.
Okay, got you. I think that's it with my questions. I know there are some things yet to be revealed and determined. We're kind of in experimental waters with this, but I just want to again just underscore my appreciation and my excitement and channel, the reservoir of goodwill that many people in our city have for this initiative and how important it is to sort of put words, actions, I should say, to our words in terms of economic empowerment for all people in Durham. So thank you so much. However, I know I speak for the whole council, I'm sure I do, however we can be helpful in making this happen, please let us know and keep up the great work. It's very exciting. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I yield back.
Thank you, Council Member. Colleagues, other questions? Mayor Pro Tem and then Council Member Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Chadwell. I'm really excited to see this item and see this moving forward. I just had a couple of questions about board and staff. Is there staff or contractors? Like, who's actually going to do the work?
Well, and thus the essence of why this is a startup. Board members are volunteering some things, but we do have some carryover funding that's expressed in the $400,000 amount from the Cedar Grove Institute that was instrumental in the genesis of the Built to Last concept. And so this resource allows them an opportunity for some consultative assistance while they do staff up and make plans for a long-term opportunity for how that staff is realized and perhaps long-term is sustained.
Okay, so the plan is for Cedar Grove Institute to be the initial contractor to do that initial piece of work that we'd be funding with the 180.
I don't want to officially get too far over my skis on that. That's their decision.
Okay.
The opportunity exists, and certainly Cedar Grove, with compliments to them, has not jettisoned this while we've transitioned from where we were to its existing opportunity. And the manager was good enough to create the opportunity for that to be a sustained relationship.
Okay, thank you. And when you say it's their decision, you mean the board?
The board's decision, that's correct.
Okay. And the board, how was the board constituted?
Well, the definitions in the MOU and all of that, one gives us an opportunity for them to explain that just a bit. What we've negotiated in this arrangement is we want to recruit and try and get board members related to the mission and the purpose and some of the seriousness associated with the challenges with what this work is going to do. Again, some of it is very, very new to this market. Once again, I turn to the creation of an equitable development fund, which is no small task, which not many markets do, but is a marvelous opportunity in the realm of access to capital. And so that would be an example of the type of expertise we want to bring aboard to help study, research, and create an opportunity for that kind of thing to be realized. And there are varying tasks along those lines, like opportunities for the kind of academies that will come up for the training, an opportunity to connect with and engage with the business community and aspects of the ecosystem that supports it. We will want expertise to guide us through those kinds of things so that all things that are curricula-based and anything related to it might be realized.
So who's finding those people? Like how is this organization being developed?
So that'll be primarily the work of the initial board with the consultative assistance, and the MOU creates an opportunity for the city to participate in the deliberations.
Okay, and did the city pull together the initial board? How did that happen?
Yeah, the city was involved with some guidance from the Cedar Grove Institute itself.
Okay.
And it was a long-term kind of negotiation, and so the outreach and recruitment and just enough initially, I think, to get the thing organized so we can continue that efforts. That was the thinking.
Okay.
That's why we wound up with the 3 members.
Okay, yeah, it feels like a little bit of a catch-22 because we want it to be an independent organization, but also as a brand new organization, I want the city, y'all, staff, to be pretty significantly involved in pulling this together, because otherwise there doesn't seem to be, without that, there doesn't seem to be much there, like without our people.
Yeah, you call it out as a catch-22. I call it perhaps the most pernicious challenge of its creation in the aegis of trying to do private sourcing that would sustain it beyond the necessity for a public investment. We have to be very, very cautious that as we interface with those kinds of opportunities in markets, that the sources being recruited are not realized, don't realize any hesitancies around the fact that whether or not this is purely a city effort or not.
Okay.
And that's a very, very carefully crafted relationship that we have to do on behalf of that board to support its ability to raise monies that are not public.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like we are very much doing this on the advice of staff, like that y'all are saying that this is what we should do. Just looking at this contract without staff engagement and staff involvement, I would say this is a brand new organization with only 3 board members and no staff. But it seems like y'all, like I feel like I'm doing this on like the full faith and credit of y'all saying this is what we need to do now. And I just want you to tell me that that's the case.
Well, certainly the full faith of credit of myself and my colleagues we feel very confident about. But
right.
notwithstanding, though, I would return you to, several months ago, the genesis of this conversation and this concept came out of the original Built to Last document that was provided to us by Cedar Grove, which in substantial part creates the variable and component parts of how this kind of thing might work. It didn't come out of isolated circumstances or bereft of other markets that have similar kinds of activities going on. What comes to mind immediately, for example, is an organization called Invest Detroit. And so there are models of this kind of thing that exist, and that was a component part. And then based on the research that was done for this body by Cedar Grove and some other research, we put together a component part that suggested that this kind of organization might be a very, very important component part to our efforts in shared prosperity. So it wasn't bereft of external consideration, some carefully crafted research, in addition to the kinds of efforts that your own staff brought to the table.
Thank you. That's helpful, and I trust y'all. And so, I'm excited to see this moving forward, and look forward to hearing more updates as we go through it about how we're negotiating that tension, that relationship between the city engagement and the independence of the nonprofit.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Freeman. And after Councilmember Freeman, Ms. Stella Adams is here, and we'll ask her. She would like to make some comments as well, and she's one of the board members. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment and just thank the volunteers that have stepped forward to lead on this board in this very independent initiative to actually create the support that's necessary for businesses to continue and be sustainable. I just wanted to note that I appreciate Dr. Wilson with North Carolina Central stepping forward with his work, and I'm sure the full support of North Carolina Central University, Central University's School of Public Administration, and then also just noting that Ms. Stella Adams and both Pilar Rocha-Goldberg are very active community members that I think will be very beneficial to making this a successful endeavor and standing up the organization. So I appreciate that staff has brought this forward, and I want to make sure that it's supported. And so if there's anything else that I can do to help with that, as Councilmember Middleton noted earlier, I want to make sure that I offer that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Madam Clerk, can you make Ms. Stella Adams available to be heard, please?
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, Ms. Adams. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all that you have done over the years for our community and for the least of these. We appreciate you even before you became a public servant in terms of electoral politics. We appreciate your leadership as an independent voice in media and in the newspapers. So I just want to share with you that the board members are active, that many of the goals we have attempted on our own. We have incorporated the organization, adopted bylaws, set up counts. We have applied for and are waiting on our 501c3 designation. There are things that we have not been able to do because we did not have sufficient funds to be able to have access to other funding sources. We believe it is critically important to be a partner with the city in developing sustainable long-term. You all hear me often talking about the needs of minority and small minority-owned businesses here in Durham. And Built to Last is created with the concept that what we're going to do is we're going to create a sustainable opportunity for equity and for small and minority businesses in Durham to grow into larger businesses and to sustain our own community through growth and opportunity. There are three components to this process, as has been shared with you by the Cedar Grove Institute. And we look forward to expanding the board. We have many board member nominees, prospects that have the skill sets that we need to be able to carry out our mission, that are waiting for this contract to be, this memorandum of understanding to be adopted. And once it's adopted, it will be very short time before we will be, have our board fully developed. But as an incorporating board, we have done our job. We have been diligent about making sure that we dot I's and cross T's to make sure that there is sufficient distance between the city and the Built to Last nonprofit, that we can obtain funding from private sources. We see in the future, particularly with the equity fund, that we're going to need not just public investment, we need the public investment to prime the pump. But if we're going to sustain the fund, we need private investment from businesses and investments into that fund. And we feel that this MOU strikes that balance. I want to thank the city staff. They have been incredible in assisting the board and getting to this moment. And I want to just give a shout out to Deputy Mayor Caldwell, and to Department Manager Andrew Pettigrew. They've been incredible, along with Mr. Pettigrew's staff. They have really sustained and assisted in standing up the organization. Again, thank you so much, and we're very excited, and we're looking forward, and I want to rest assured we will accomplish all goals. That we are confident that we will achieve our mission, and we're just raring, ready to go. And so with that, I'll say thank you and turn it back.
Ms. Adams, thank you so much for those comments. We really appreciate it. And Ms. Adams, thank you for agreeing to serve on this inaugural board and for the work you all have done to get it going, your work with our staff, your work getting the nonprofit incorporated, the application for the 501c3. All of those things are crucial, and we're grateful to you. Thank you so much, and to the other two members as well. All right, colleagues, other questions or comments at this time? Okay, I do have just a couple of quick things. Mr. Chadwell, thank you for all these explanations. I appreciate the questions that my colleagues have asked, and appreciate your comments as well as Ms. Adams. I'll just say that I agree with my colleagues that this is a crucial, Councilmember Middleton started off that way, that this is a crucial initiative for our city. And we know we went through a whole process that got knocked off track with the pandemic. I thought we did some great work that we can learn from during the pandemic in terms of the funding that we did do of 250 small businesses, most of them minority and women-led. And so I think we got some valuable experience. What seems to me to be the challenge is, there can be, I'm sure there are multiple challenges, but the biggest challenge to me seems to be to raise this equity fund. And Ms. Adams spoke to the need for private fundraising. And I just having been involved in the fundraising for the Affordable Housing Loan Fund, which is a different animal because it's a loan, and we're really talking here about equity finance. But that was hard. We did get some crucial private investors, And so I really agree with Ms. Adams. I think that it's going to be important to have board members that will have some of those important connections to capital. And so I just wanted to urge that. I'm sure you all are thinking along those lines. So that's one thing I wanted to just observe. And then the other is, my question is, after, and again, this may be something that's developed later, but let me just say, we had a really good mechanism for distribution of the funds during the pandemic with Kevin Dick's organization, whose name escapes me at this red hot second.
Carolina Small Business Development.
Carolina Small Business Development Fund, thank you. And we're going to need some sort of organization that works with the nonprofit in order to wisely invest. And so do you envision something like the Carolina Small Business Development Fund or some other entity which will vet the potential investments once we do have the capital?
Let me respond in this way. I think in its purest sense, and for what the essence of that kind of development fund is, it really is a robust opportunity for really super high growth businesses and those kinds of things. Not every business will qualify for it. If you have one in your market, it's a transformative kind of thing. And it's also national in scope, which would inform some of the necessities that you talk about for the board appointments. And so, the fundraising is not limited to a Durham market per se. It's directly attached to opportunities based on what the marketplace yields that our businesses can perform within the envelope under which they grow. Given that kind of order of magnitude, if you will, about the size of the fundraising and ultimately the size of the dollars that, if successful, will be achieved, and modeling after other jurisdictions that do this, a separate kind of entity under the umbrella of the nonprofit probably exists for the sole purpose of administering the creation of and administering of such a fund.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be challenging. I think raising the money will be challenging. But I agree with you that it's not just local funds that are available. There are national foundations that invest in these kinds of funds, and so I'm hoping we'll be able to access those.
And an important dimension to the point you just made, we think in terms of fundraising and the philanthropic aspect of it, but creating that kind of fund really is an exercise in an investment kind of scenario in addition to just a philanthropic one.
Right.
So it has that dimension to it, and that's important when you consider the order of magnitude around which we hope it's created.
Great. All right. Thank you. Colleagues, any further questions or comments for Mr. Chadwell? All right, Mr. Chadwell, thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we're excited about this. We're excited about this opportunity for the city and for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thanks for Ms. Adams for being here and for your work, Ms. Adams. All right, we'll now move to item 15, and this item was pulled by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, which is debris management contract with DRC Emergency Services, LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question. Is this a new initiative that we're doing, or is this replacing an existing contract?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor Schul, members of council, Marvin Williams, with the Department of Public Works. This is not a new contract or a new initiative. This is one that the city has been doing since the 90s. The last time this contract came before council was in 2015. And it's just one of those contracts that comes up so infrequently. It feels like a new initiative, but it's really not.
Great, thank you.
I think the other thing that might make it feel that way is that we don't spend the money. We only spend it if there's a certain kind of disaster, which we haven't had. Is that right, Mr. Williams?
That is correct. We have never activated one of these contracts, and hopefully we will never have to.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions or comments on item 15? All right. I pulled item 16, Mr. Williams. What interested me was that the actual removal of debris is $3 million of roughly, and this is a $1 million contract to monitor the removal of the debris. That seemed like an interesting, what would the word be? An interesting proportion there. And I was wondering, do you feel that's appropriate?
Mayor Schul, yes, I do. It is appropriate because the amount of documentation that is required by FEMA for reimbursement during a federally declared emergency is very intensive. And I will note that these are all estimates. The actual debris collection dollar amount may increase substantially, as well as the monitoring dollar amount. It really will depend on the event. These are just estimates that we prepared based on the FEMA guidelines for a city our size with our amount of tree canopy and vegetation that may come out to the roadway for collection by the city and our contractor. But these are all estimates. Those numbers will actually change once an event happens, if it does ever happen.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. It strikes me that in trying to be careful in the expenditure of money, FEMA is requiring us to spend a whole lot of money. Yeah, it just, I mean, if we ever have to spend it. But the other thing I wanted to observe about this is the employment statistics for this firm were fascinating, especially the local office of this firm does an amazing job hiring minorities, especially African-American women. I was really impressed by that, so wanted to notice it. All right, colleagues, we've now gone through the pulled items, and we have 2 presentations, and we will begin with item 3, Madam Manager, or would you rather do 17? Right, 3 first? Okay. We're going to do item 3, the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee report, and we're looking forward to very much to hearing this report. Do we know who's up here first? Mr. Johnson, I bet.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Hello?
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Johnson, good to see you.
Greetings, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the City Council, Reginald Johnson, Director of the Department of Community Development. This item before you is the first report from the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee that the City Council appointed in the wake of the passage of the bond referendum. I will definitely turn it over to our co-chairs, Diane Katati and Tiffany Elder. But I do want to take this opportunity, since this will be my only time at the microphone, to thank you on behalf of the Department of Community Development for your service and your leadership on the aspect of affordable housing for our city. There's no need to go down the litany and the list of things that you have done and that you have served leader on. Those have been well documented. But I just want you to know that on behalf of the Community Development Department, that we thank you for your service and your leadership and your commitment to housing all of those persons in the city of Durham. And you just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm grateful to you for your words. Thank you. I believe we have Ms. Elder or Ms. Katati next up.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today to share the first presentation of the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee. We have quite a bit to update you on, so Diane and I will split the presentation. I am going to attempt to share my screen. One moment. Sorry about that. It's not sharing. One moment.
Take your time. We understand these things. Just whatever it takes.
Okay, here we go. All right. We will dive right in. So this first slide helps to set the stage regarding why the affordable housing plan is so important. This is a market snapshot for Durham County as of September of 2021. A few things of note are here you see in September 2021, the average home sale price in Durham was $397,000, just about. Also, year over year, we've had almost a 25% increase in median home sale prices in Durham. And while a balanced market has 6 months of inventory, we only have 8.8 months, which is approximately 3 weeks. Homes are regularly selling above asking. It's really hard to compete. Affordable housing is almost nil, but this is giving you an idea of sort of where the market is right now. And that is spilling over as well into rental housing. Rental prices in Durham increased 20% since the start of the COVID pandemic. 1-bedroom rents are now averaging or at a median of $1,140 a month. 2-bedroom rentals are just over $1,400 a month. And if you think about the per capita and household median incomes in Durham, this really illustrates how housing affordability is becoming much more difficult across the board. Fortunately, we have the affordable housing bond and an affordable housing plan in place. This slide here illustrates the affordable housing 5-year plan, which has been rebranded Forever Home Durham. This is a snapshot of the goals from the Forever Home Durham website. The website is up and running and will serve as a central repository of information for Durham's affordable housing plan. And as you can see here, the goals for meaningful change for the affordable housing plan are outlined. Building or preserving 2,400 affordable rental homes, moving 1,700 homeless individuals and families into permanent housing, providing 400 affordable home ownership opportunities for low-income home buyers. And you saw from that first slide how important that piece is. Helping 3,000 low-income renters and homeowners remain or improve in their homes, and creating ample opportunities for minority and women-owned contractors. So the affordable housing bond, the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee's duties and responsibilities are listed here. First is to advise on the administration of the Affordable Housing Investment Plan, including the bond that was passed overwhelmingly by voters in November of 2019, to guarantee transparency and accountability in the city's expenditures of bond funds, to review expenditures with a focus on housing construction, job training, and the inclusion of minority and women contractors, to provide feedback and guidance on the city's communications to the public about progress on the housing investment program, to provide a briefing to council every 6 months, of which this is the first. And for clarity, we always reiterate to everyone that the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee does not make funding or allocation decisions. To get things started, there were 2 committee chairs, Diane Katati and myself, put in place, and we had 14 members sworn in. Our first meeting was held on April 1st, 2021, followed by 6 additional meetings just this year. The meetings are streamed on YouTube and are easily accessible by the public. And all of the agendas, minutes, presentations for past meetings are accessible via foreverhomedurham.com. We have had a number of presentations that the committees received. This is just a short list, but not a comprehensive list. First, community development reports at each meeting on the status of projects. DHA as well updates at each meeting. So it's a great chance to hear about where things are and where they're going. The communications plan and website review by Moss and Ross and French West Vaughn. Those are the consultants who were put in place to put the website and the communications plan in place. They've been doing a great job. The MWBE contractor introduction, that company is United Minority Contractors of North Carolina. And the Committee on Healthcare, Homeless, and Housing presented, and we also had a snapshot of the market just to get everyone grounded on where we're starting from.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to take over from here, and I'm hoping that you can still see the slides that Tiffany is sharing. It looks like you can.
Yes, we can.
So,
yeah.
Great. Okay, so I wanted to start by sharing a snapshot of the information that the Community Development Department prepares and shares with us at each meeting. So in the second to left column, you can see the same goals that Tiffany just outlined that are from the 5-year implementation plan. And then moving from left to right, you can see pipeline, under contract, units completed, the total, and the balance remaining. So for example, for rental units created, the goal was 1,600. We've completed 82, which is the Willard Street apartments. For rental units preserved, the goal is 800. 34 have been completed, and that's primarily the Laurel Oaks development. And then you can see the other numbers that are completed for homeownership opportunities, homeless persons in permanent housing, and low-income household stabilized. Next slide, please, Tiffany. Thanks. Okay, so from the Durham Housing Authority, we get reports every month, and some highlights of what they shared with us include a review of their maintenance and repair record system, including improvements to that. We've heard from them about their downtown and neighborhood plan, especially the Liberty Street, 519 East Main Street, and Elizabeth Street projects, as well as the J.J. Henderson renovation and new construction of senior housing. They've also shared with us their Shared Prosperity Program, which reviews MWBE participation and job recruitment programs. They've also shared about their Fresh Start program, which assists DHA families who are behind on their rent. And lastly, we have heard from them about the RFPs that they have issued for Forest Hill Heights, Fayette Place, and DHA central office properties. Next slide, please, Tiffany. Great. Other highlights are the new website, the foreverhomedurham.com that Tiffany showed you a snapshot of, and also that the MWBE contract was awarded to UMC-NC. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with you some of the concerns of the committee and things that we are talking about and watching. So these include DHA repairs and resident concerns, rising construction prices overall, supply chain delays, cost overruns, slow production timelines, rising home prices and rents, as Tiffany just shared, gentrification, evictions, emergency rental assistance program implementation and the pause, and thank you for your just momentary passage of additional funds for legal aid. We also are watching carefully MWBE participation numbers, both in dollars and percentage. And lastly, we have concerns around bond-related employment for Durham residents. Among others, there are others. Okay, so things that we're looking forward to. Next steps include the RFP awards from the Housing Authority that we hope to see in January of next year. We're also looking forward to another update on from UMC-NC on the MWBE goals. We also expect to hear from relocated DHA residents. We're very much looking forward to robust financial reporting to go with those unit numbers that you saw. And lastly, we're looking forward to continued public communication efforts around Forever Home Durham activities. Moss and Ross or French West Vaughan are updating that website at least quarterly. And so we continue to watch progress there. And that is the end of our first 6 months reports. We welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Katati and Ms. Elder, we're so grateful to you that you've agreed to chair this. And we could not have two better people to chair this effort. Colleagues, questions and comments, either for Mr. Johnson, and I noticed as Mr. Johnson was enjoying himself next to Durham's most beautiful new affordable housing, Willard Street. That was great. But any questions or comments for Mr. Johnson or either of our co-chairs? Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. Just real quick on the last bullet with the next steps, the continued public communication effort. I'm curious if we'll be able to add additional languages besides English on the website. I did not see the ability to do that. I may have missed it.
Thank you. Were you all able to hear that, Mr. Johnson? About
yes, I was adding additional language on the website, and I think that we'll be talking with the technology folks about that. We're actually in the process of transferring the website now, which is a major undertaking, but we will definitely figure out how we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember, we got a bunch of hands. We'll start with Councilmember Freeman. We'll go to Councilmember Reese, and then Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to share that I had an opportunity to serve on a panel with the Apex housing manager, and I thought it was phenomenal, the system that they put in place to actually cover their housing needs. And it would be great if we could kind of pair up and have a conversation, a discussion at one of our council meetings in the future around, or briefing, just to say where we are in general as we try to attack this affordable housing crisis. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. Just to be clear, you said you were, I couldn't hear who you were on the conference panel with.
Oh, sorry, on a panel with the North Carolina League of Municipalities on affordable housing.
Right.
With the Apex City town manager,
Gotcha.
Apex Housing town manager.
Right. Thank you so much, and I think that's a great suggestion. Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am privileged to serve as the council's liaison to the Affordable Housing Implementation Committee, and I just wanted to thank the co-chairs, former City Council Member Diane Katati and Tiffany Elder, for their really outstanding leadership of a group of folks who are really interested in understanding the challenges that we face as a city when it comes to our housing needs, and how the $95 million affordable housing bond and the city's broader Forever Home initiative can make a difference in making our city more affordable, and for making the process of doing that impact minority and women-owned businesses in the construction of new housing. I've just been really, really impressed with them, and also impressed by the other committee members who have asked really hard questions, oftentimes revealing the truth about how hard it is to live in this city for some of our neighbors. And a lot of their questions have been the most challenging, and have really revealed for me how much work we still have to do. The Affordable Housing Bond was an extraordinary and unprecedented effort. Mr. Mayor, you led that effort, and it won in every precinct of the city. But it can't be the last big thing we do on this. And just want to remind my colleagues that these are the kinds of things you have to think about when you sit in these Affordable Housing Implementation Committee meetings, because the folks that we've put on this committee have asked such hard questions. How are we going to meet all of these needs? What more can we do? And that's why I think it's not just about the transparency and accountability that this committee is bringing to us. It's about reminding us that we still have so much more to do to meet the very desperate needs in our community. So that's what I'm most thankful for about this committee. And as I said, the leadership of our co-chairs has been outstanding, and look forward to continuing to working with them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilmember, and thank you for serving as the liaison to that important committee. We appreciate it. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks so much to our co-chairs and to our entire committee for doing this important work, and of course to our staff who have been doing an incredible amount of work on these priorities for affordable housing, and particularly with the COVID crisis. I was really struck by the slides about the increases in rent and home prices. Those are really dramatic, and it seems that this has been happening for a long time, but it seems that the speed of it is accelerating, and that's a huge concern. In fact, the concerns slide gave me like some heartburn when I first read it. I was like, yeah, these are really serious concerns. They are very concerning, and so I appreciate that that our staff and our committee members are really digging into and thinking about how we deal with all of these intersecting issues and crises. I have a couple of questions specifically about progress. The progress slide was really helpful, and it seems like we're making really good progress to goal in all of the areas except for home ownership opportunities. I was hoping somebody could speak to what our plan is for getting those 400 home ownership opportunities lined up in the next 3 years. Sorry, 394.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll be glad to just jump in and speak to that. If you will remember, maybe a month or two ago, the City Council approved a contract with an organization that's going to be administering our second mortgages. And we've executed that contract, but there's some other pieces that need to be in place with legal services before they start the rollout, which we expect to begin at the beginning of the year. And so that's where the plan is for our second mortgages, and that's the bulk of the home ownership.
Great, thank you. And was there a contractor doing that before? Was that the one that we approved? Is that, are we like just starting that up now?
We haven't started it up. You just approved the contract, I want to say in the last 3 cycles maybe.
Okay.
So it's been very recent.
Okay, thank you. We've talked about this a little bit before, but particularly with the rapid increase in prices, a priority for our community should be education around how predatory some of these offers can be from folks who, will, like the folks with the We Buy Homes signs, and will offer, lower income or elderly homeowners really small amounts of money for their houses, and then flip them and extract the profit. Have we done any work to try to educate community members about predatory acquisition practices? Or do you know if there are other organizations in Durham that are doing that work?
I would say, Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know if there are other organizations that are doing the work as the way we envisioned it with the plan that was pre-COVID. That's the reason we put the resources in when we, in the Affordable Housing Investment Plan. The challenge is that we had this little thing called COVID that has some disruption.
Just a little thing.
And we had to move some things because COVID is basically one of the related things to the priority. And so we had to shift staffing, shift our priorities to be able to accommodate that. And we're going to hopefully, as we come out of the crisis, be able to revisit that and go back to our plan. But it is a need. It is still a need. But our capacity to work on all things all the time is a bit challenged. And so we agree. And so I would offer that.
Understood, thank you. This question might have the same answer. Another project that we had discussed is working with local financial institutions to help people get capital to build accessory dwelling units that would then be provided for affordable housing. Is that still in the works and also delayed because we are not omniscient and can't do everything at all times?
Yes, ma'am, I would say that is accurate. And remember, that's a financing piece as well, that we have to do some pilots, but we've not been, just be honest, we have not been able to get that off the ground in terms of focus right now.
Yeah, totally understand. It's still on the list of what we intend to do.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. Great, thank you. And sorry, one last question. When we developed the property tax relief program, one of our goals was also to make sure that residents are aware of all the other the state property tax relief programs. Are we still sending out educational materials for that? Or now that the county has taken over doing a larger tax relief program, is that responsibility gonna switch over to the county?
I would say, I know the county has been sending out promotional materials, information materials about the other programs. We talked about that again pre-COVID and where we are now on the long-term homeowner grant program. that's something that we'll have to reevaluate where our role and our resources need to go, particularly since the county has developed an additional program since we talked about that.
Right.
But I do know for a fact that they have shared information on the programs. The point was that were we, members of our community, really participating as we should in those programs that were offered by the state, were people educated on those?
Right, and we have done some education on that as well at the city level.
I would say we have not put any brochures out or anything like that. No, we have not.
Okay. Thank you. Really appreciate all of y'all's work. I know it's an incredible amount of work, and y'all are one of the departments that have had to step up so much during COVID to get all these priorities done. Just want to say to my colleagues and to our city manager, if there's a need for more investment in our community development department to meet these critical goals, I would absolutely support and encourage budget requests from them to expand their capacity and continue to hit our benchmarks. I think this is one of our biggest priorities, and we need to fund it as such. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Reese?
Just really quick, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I absolutely agree. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I don't know that there's another department in city government more critical to what we're trying to do in the community right now than our community development department, because housing is so central to the way that folks live their lives, obviously. I wanted to follow up on something the Mayor Pro Tem brought up about wholesalers offering low cash prices to longtime homeowners. Some of you may recall that back in September, there was a piece in the Indy that talked about how easy it was for folks to do that. The city attorney was kind enough to look into this a little bit and sent me some suggestions that I'm going to forward on to our folks at community development. One of them that she found was the state of Colorado issues what they call advisories that raise awareness about these kinds of wholesalers that were talked about in that Indy piece, who target longtime homeowners and those homeowners may not understand the underlying value of their homes, and they're thereby vulnerable to the kind of misleading practices that the Mayor Pro Tem was talking about. That's something we should definitely look at, and I'll send that along to our friends in community development. The other thing that the city attorney found, which was amazing, is the city of Atlanta has what they call a commercial harassment ordinance that's intended to crack down on incessant phone calls and letters and inquiries that too often lead to these kinds of transactions by wholesalers to offer below market prices to longtime homeowners. And so that's another thing that I'm going to ask our city attorney's office to begin looking at ways we could bring some of those pieces into our regulatory framework to try to protect our homeowners. That's something we could do outside of the community development department, because y'all got enough to do. Just wanted to say that I just wanted to thank our city attorney for doing that great work a little bit ago, and happy to bring that up again and see us move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Council Member, and I had not heard about that, and that's great to know. Thank you, Madam Attorney. Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues, for this really important conversation. I want to thank Sister Tiffany for being here, Sister Elder for being here, and the legendary Councilmember Katati. Always good to see you, and for this charge you're taking up on behalf of the city. Second to the council itself, the AHIC might be the most watched board that's convened in our city, arguably, because we're all experience such anxiety about affordable housing in our city. And I think the Mayor Pro Tem already intoned this. You know, when you look at the percentage increase in rent and home prices in our city, and we talk about this issue of affordable housing, you know, what ordinance did we pass to stop this? What mayoral declaration can be issued to stop the forces of the market? So one of the things I'm grateful for is just a hard, sobering reality of what we face as a city. And folk have to remember that. I wish we were as powerful as people think we are as a council. With that said, and I think Councilmember Reese gave voice to this, we have to continue to do big things. The reason why these predatory lenders are successful is because of the presence of vulnerability, lack of resources, and desperation. And often that triad, those trinity of factors have been systemically built into our communities, which make them vulnerable to predatory lenders. If you can't get most folk don't want to sell their houses that they've built memories in. They don't want to give away the homestead. But if you don't have enough money to fix it, you can't pay taxes, or there's gunfire in your neighborhood every night, folk want to move, and folk want to get rid of their homes. So folk, I think, and I'm glad that we brought up Atlanta, and one of my, heroes in my pantheon of political leaders is Maynard Jackson, the former legendary mayor of Atlanta, and who's the airport's named after him. And Maynard Jackson, although our state legislature won't allow us to do some of the things that Atlanta has done to create that legendary pocket of black wealth that Atlanta represents for so many around the country, but he was intentional, and his government was intentional about equity, about doing the type of things that I've talked about, a Marshall Plan type investment in legacy communities that the United States did for Europe after World War II to insulate some of these communities from predatory lenders. If you got the money, it's a different conversation when you can fix your house, when you can pay the taxes. It's a very different conversation than when you don't have it. So I hope that moving forward, we will look to do the big things that will protect particularly our legacy black neighborhoods from this predatory type practices. But yeah, with these price increases and in homes and rentals, it's a very sobering presentation. But I'm heartened by the political will that's been summoned on this council and in this council and historically to face this issue head on. I do want to ask a question with respect to some of our wins thus far, and I think I may have touched on this in prior conversations, perhaps for you, Brother Reginald. And I'm asking this question because folk have put it to me, so I'm the messenger. First off, I want to say that our wins are real. They're real, and they should be celebrated. But with respect to the rental units, Reginald, and the 82 units at Willard, some folk have put to me that those units actually predate even the branding of the Forever Home Initiative. So I would ask but we should count them. They're wins and they're legitimate wins towards our goals. But is it safe when folks say to me, Reginald, that those units, yeah, they count, but they actually predate our current iteration and our current crusade towards attacking the Affordable Housing Initiative? How should I respond to those folks?
Well, thank you, Council Member. So remember, we went through an exercise where we defined what is counted and what is not, and why it is counted.
Sorry, Richard, I can barely hear you, buddy. I don't know if it's your microphone.
Okay, let me make an adjustment here. Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Can you remember that we shared what will be counted and what will not, and starting with I think those things that were in contract after July 1, 2019. And so this is counted and should be counted. We had work beginning before there was a Forever Home Durham program and before there was a bond referendum. As I've shared, the work that we're doing in affordable housing did not start with the bond referendum. Remember, we had the dedicated housing fund prior to that. We had projects that were underway, and definitely before a naming. So that doesn't mean that to start, but we did go through exercises to define what is counted and what is not. But this should be rightfully counted. It is the beginning of where we are, but in many respects, it's a continuation of work that we've already been well underway.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I feel better because that's kind of what I've been saying, that this isn't a new effort on our part, because I think some folks see the affordable housing bond as kind of like a hard point of commencement, and it's not. We've got a strategic housing plan that goes back, strategic affordable housing plan that goes back years, and that although it may not, Forever Home may be a new kind of moniker or a recent kind of moniker, that the work has been ongoing. And Willard Street is a manifestation of that ongoing work, part of that narrative that goes way back. So that makes me feel better. Thanks for that. That's kind of what I've been saying, and that's what I'll continue to say. But congratulations on the work. This is absolutely the tip of the spear for us, and absolutely critical. I think it becomes even more important with the context you've given us today, with the increase in, which we all suspected and knew, but to see it in a presentation like this, the numbers are just absolutely startling, and should make us all want to redouble our efforts and commit ourselves to doing this important work of making Durham a Durham for everybody. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Colleagues, any other questions or comments for staff or for the co-chairs? Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to appreciate my colleagues' comments and just noting how I think the conversation started in 2018, 2019, and it has not, the housing need hasn't stayed static. And so I want to make sure that we're evolving along with the needs, acknowledging that as we've been talking about a tenant's bill of rights, there's a lot of safe and healthy, decent, affordable housing needs that have not been addressed in this city. And I want to make sure that we're encompassing all of them and not just limiting it to the bond's initial thoughts around how we should address affordable housing. I think when it initially started, we were specifically focused on the housing authority, and then we expanded from there. And so I just want to make sure that we do go back, because I do think that Apex did a really great job outlining the actual needs and then attacking it from that aspect forward. And I appreciate that we did get the bond moved forward, but we've got a huge housing need. And I want to make sure that we're just not calculating it based on where we were in 2018, 2019. As we go into 2022, that we do actually study where we are and figure out what it's going to take for us to make sure that housing is affordable, decent, and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Colleagues, I just have a few comments, and I want to appreciate all my colleagues' questions and thoughts, which I think were really useful. And I think it might be good, Mr. Johnson, if you would go ahead and just send a reminder in response to Councilmember Middleton's question. You talked about the date that we kind of count from, but I think it might be good if council colleagues received just an email to remind everybody of that date. We know that so much of the affordable housing work that you all have talked about already, colleagues, was done prior to the passage of the bond or the creation of Forever Home Durham. I think about the Daymar Court and Maureen Road apartments, which are nowhere in these counts. We could all mention a lot more. And so I think that it would be good to know kind of where we're counting from here. Colleagues, I did want to also say, and you all know this, but I think it's worth thinking about when we think about our green and equitable infrastructure. When I think about how we got to where we are with this housing initiative, we started with a penny for housing. That was 10 years ago. We moved a few years after that to 2 pennies, passed the bond issue. And as everybody here is saying, we still know that's not going to be enough, but that's the way we built it. So you all have already started with the green and equitable infrastructure. We passed the half penny. And I think that is a great way to kind of build towards these bigger investments. And so I just want to compliment the council on doing that. And I'm excited about what the future might hold for the green and equitable infrastructure investments with a potential bond along these same lines. Everything that everybody has been saying about the fact that this isn't enough is just totally true. As I say to people all the time, what we're doing is with all this expenditure and with this tremendous amount of effort, we're making a dent in the problem. We're making a dent. You look at 7,500 different, if you add up all the numbers on that chart, and sometimes you all hear me say this, but if you look at all the numbers on that chart on the goal side, that adds up to 7,500 units or people stabilizing housing. I multiply that by 2, and I say to myself, okay, we're going to house 15,000 people affordably in Durham. That's a lot. That's 5% of the people in our community, and they tend to be our most vulnerable people. The average income of a Durham Housing Authority family is $12,000 a year. Plus, of course, we're including our homeless residents in this number. But we also know that's not enough, and all the things that you all are pointing out about this is absolutely right. We have the 400 home ownership opportunities, and we know that that's not nearly what we need. So I appreciate you all's talk about how to even be more ambitious in this area, and I'm grateful. I also want to second what Mayor Pro Tem Johnson said about the Community Development Department's capacity. I'm worried about it because we ask so much, and I just hope that I know our administration will keep in mind the Community Development Department's capacity needs and let the council know. And I think you heard an invitation, Madam Manager, that if there are more needs for capacity in the department, to please let us know, or please let my colleagues know. And then we haven't talked much about the minority contracting goal, and so, Mr. Johnson, let me just ask you a question. We have an ambitious minority contracting goal, $130 million. And we have now got the contractor, but we've already got going on some of this work. And I'm wondering how you're feeling about our ability to progress towards that goal and meet it.
So I would say, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question. We've just had meetings on it this week with our contractor and equity and inclusion also. And I would say that we do have the opportunity to meet that goal, but we're just in the beginning. One of the things that the contractor is going to help us with is not just securing minority contractors, but also outreach to them and help training them and assisting and supporting them. And that also includes Davis-Bacon and Section 3 work as well. And so I'm optimistic. The vendor, United Minority Contractors of North Carolina, has an outstanding reputation. They have suggestions for us already, and do recall that they are part of the contract. They'll be working with the Housing Authority as well until the Housing Authority has its own similarly situated with a firm of its own in terms of their processes. So we're offering support to them as well. And so I think that's important. So I am optimistic that we will be able to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And I'm appreciative that we have contractors, minority-owned contractors like Laurel Street who are already part of what we're doing. But I know our community is going to be closely monitoring that, as it should, and looking forward to that.
Mr. Mayor, I do, at the appropriate time, do have another comment to add. Thank you.
Say again, Mr. Johnson.
I do have another comment to add when you.
Please go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr.
I
Johnson.
just do want to share in response to Mayor Pro Tem's question about the home ownership. I needed to make a clarification. The firm Community Home Trust will be on we're shooting for a December contract. That's the second mortgage firm. What I had in mind was also related to home ownership, the Habitat for Humanity contract that we approved in the last month or so. And so I got those kind of interchanged. But I just wanted to say that we've selected a great vendor for our second mortgage program, and that'll be underway shortly. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Johnson. Just looking at my notes here to see if I had anything else. I think that does it. I think we all know that this is an existential threat to who we are. And we have big plans. We've got lots of work, great work going on, and I agree with my colleagues that say that there's more to be done. All right, thank you all. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Elder, Ms. Katati, we're so grateful to you and look forward to hearing more. Okay, we'll now
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Johnson.
you all.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 17, which is our last item today, which is also a presentation. And this is the the first quarter financial report. And I expect we're probably going to hear from Mr. O'Lore.
Yes, good afternoon, actually. It's Christina Reardon.
Hi, Ms. Reardon. Good to hear from you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Christina Reardon, Budget and Management Services. And I will be here today to present for you the first quarter report. And I believe we're going to pull it up on the screen right now. Okay, so as I said, we'll be doing the first quarter report for this year. And one of the things that you know is that we come to you 4 times a year to provide you with an update. The first quarter is often the quarter that we have the least amount of information, so the most uncertainty exists. So I say that to say that the information I'll be giving you is our best estimate at this point. But the good news is that we'll be back in February to provide our second quarter financial report. So we'll start out with the general fund, which is the fund where most of our departments reside and the majority of our tax revenue is appropriated. So the general fund, I've talked about uncertainty. I think when we talk about revenues, especially in the general fund, uncertainty in the first quarter is one of the things that I'll be talking about. And that has to do with our 2 major revenue sources in the general fund. Our property tax makes up about 51.7% of the general fund revenue, and our sales tax makes up about another 33.9%. And both of those we don't have a whole lot of information for at this point. Property tax comes in December and January when it's due for the most part, and then sales tax is about 3 months behind, so we don't even receive our first payment until October. I do want to kind of remind people about kind of an anomaly that happened in FY21, which was that tax bills were mailed out about 4 to 6 weeks later than normal. So that will affect some of the actuals that we take a look at. So moving on to some information about the revenues, the news is good. As I said, comparing this year compared to last year at the same time, all revenue sources are up. Property tax is up a significant amount, 324%, but again, a lot of that has to do with the tax bills and the timing of when they were sent out to residents. The next one is occupancy tax. This tax is one that's been kind of most affected by COVID. And so the fact that it is up 60% is good news. Although it's not back to pre-pandemic levels, we are seeing kind of a more of a return to normal. The Powell bill is up slightly at 3%. Intergovernmental revenues is a lot of the money that we receive from Durham County. And so that increase is probably mostly due to timing of when revenues are received. And then charges for services up, probably a lot also to some of the COVID services that we've kind of restored this year as opposed to last year. So the next slide will show you kind of a visual of those revenues in FY22 compared to FY21. And obviously, the big number is the $15 million in property tax that we received compared to the $3.5 million last year at this time. And again, I really don't think that there's probably a change in property tax, more just a timing of receipts. So this next slide kind of gives you some of our projections for where we feel like we're going to end the year when it comes to general fund revenues. And we're expecting almost all revenue sources to come in at budget at this time, with the exception of charges for services, where at this point, we're projecting that it might be slightly under budget at about $63,000. Moving on to expenditures, we are expecting that all departments that no departments will exceed their budget, which is good news. And we are expecting some savings to the tune of $1.9 million. Most of those savings are in personnel costs by $1.4 million, and then some operating and capital costs at about $14,000. This slide is showing you the actuals in FY22 compared to FY21. What you'll notice is that actuals are up by about $3.9 million more than they were last year, which is about 7%. The majority of that is probably in personnel services, which are trending higher than they were last time at this year. But I do want to remind Council that we did have a number of one-time bonuses that were paid in the July paycheck. And so that is accounting for some of the change between FY22 and FY21. Again, this is showing the projection that I talked about for the general fund, with us projecting that personnel services will be under budget by $1.4 million. Operating expenses under budget by about $500,000 and capital at about $13,000. So moving on to the enterprise funds. The first fund I want to talk about is our water sewer fund. And this fund is a self-sufficient fund, which means that it does not receive any tax support. And it is where it should be at this time of year. Overall revenues are at 29.79% of budget, and expenses are at about 20.3%, with personnel expenses making up about 27.4%. And right now we're expecting revenues to be at budget. So the next slide shows us the revenues, which, as I mentioned before, we're expecting to come in at budget. Moving on to expenditures, the fund is anticipating some savings in personnel due to some vacancies in the department, and that's to the tune of $778,000, which is the budget variance for this fund at this point. The next fund is the transit fund, and this fund does receive tax support at about 3.75 cents, which is accounts for about $13.9 million. This fund is, at the moment, is budgeted fare free, so that we are not charging fares for bus service. And so there is some good news with the transit fund, and we are expecting it to operate under budget and coming in around $1.5 million. One of the things that has assisted the fund, giving it a positive impact, is some federal funding they're receiving. They have been receiving federal coronavirus response and relief supplemental act fund in the amount of $11.3 million, which is impacting the fund to the good. And we are, and John can move on to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about the revenues. So that operating revenues, the top one would be where normally our charges for service would show up. And then we have taxes at $13.8 million, or almost 13.9. The grant revenue at 11.3. And then miscellaneous revenue is, the majority of that is from the Durham Transit Authority. The department is had some service enhancements that they have delayed at the moment. And so some of the savings you'll see both on the revenue and expenditure side have to do with the delay of some of those service enhancements. And the next one is expenses. And as I talked about, there is the department is expecting to see some operating expenditures, some savings in if there's some service enhancement delays. And then the $4 million that you see under capital outlay are some buses that were initially encumbered in the fund, but the department has another revenue source for that. So they will be moving and be paid for out of our CIP. So the overall budget variance for the transit fund is $13 million, and they are expected to end the year to the good by about $1.5 million. The next fund is the solid waste fund. As with the transit fund, this is a fund that receives tax rate 5.59 cents, which is about $20.7 million. The rest of the revenue received in the fund is charges for services, which makes up about 28.4% of the revenue. This revenue in this fund has been impacted by COVID. So there has not been a return to normal commercial garbage, which impacts revenue at the transfer station. And so the fund is anticipated to come in a little under budget in those revenues. But as far as expenditures goes, we have good news. So I'll start with the revenues. And you can see that we're expecting $528,000 to be under that in operating revenues. And then under expenditures, personnel is expected to come in at budget, and operating expenditures are expected to come in under budget by about $2.5 million. And that has to do with some contract savings, especially with our recycling contract is the main driver of that. Recycling markets are doing better than anticipated or than they were at the beginning of the year. And so that is kind of accounting for some of that expenditure savings. So the next fund is the Stormwater Fund, which is another self-sufficient fund that receives no tax support. At Q1, the fund is exactly where it should be with 38.2% of projected revenues. If you were to look at last year's Q1, this is kind of similar to property tax. Bills were sent out later than normal. So it looks like we have received more revenue than we have at Q1 last year. But again, that's probably a timing issue. Overall, the fund is expected to use a significant amount of fund balance, $4.4 million, but that's largely due to some capital improvement projects they had planned. So the first slide shows revenues and where we think that we'll end the year, which is almost exactly on budget. And then with expenditures, there is a slight savings in personnel, $195,000, with the overall budget variance for the Stormwater Fund being good at $197,000. And then the Parking Fund is the next fund I want to talk about. The Parking Fund does not receive a direct tax allocation, although the debt service fund does subsidize some of the existing debt in the fund. And the Parking Fund is one of those funds that has been most affected by COVID. There has not been a return to normal for parking demand. And so even when we went into budgeting the Parking Fund this year, we knew that operating revenues were not expected to cover operating expenditures, but the situation is slightly worse. Our projection will be slightly worse than it was even at the beginning of the budget. So, and these are the operating revenues or the projection I was talking about. Operating revenues are expected to come in $471,000 less than we had budgeted. And then the fund is expected to have a slight personnel savings of $22,000, but there are some one-time costs of a contract and some equipment that will take them over budget in operating expenditures to the tune of $124,000. So the overall budget variance for the Parking Fund will be $513,000, and they are expected to use $2.5 million of fund balance by the end of the year. The last fund I want to talk about is our Inspections Fund. This is the fund that is used to pay for our inspections department and other inspections related activities. Currently, revenues are at budget, and the first quarter, the fund has received 28.3% of its revenues and 24.2% of its expenditures. We expect this fund to end the year at budget, and of course, as with all funds, we'll be bringing you another update at Q2. So not much news in the inspections funds. We're expecting it to come in at budget for both revenues and expenditures. And that was all the information I have for you today, and I'll open it up to any questions anyone might have.
Ms. Reardon, thank you for an absolutely great presentation, and really appreciate it. I do have a couple of questions. I think I'll start. For the Parking Fund, you know, and first of all, we're doing amazingly well. We've come out of the pandemic so much better than I think all of us thought we might. But the Parking Fund continues to be the fly in the ointment. And I don't have any real questions about that except to observe it. And I know that this is something that our staff is thinking about a lot and working on, but I do want to just observe for colleagues that when I look at this thing, it's a great report, and until I get there, and then I don't see good options for us, but I know our staff's working on it, so that's just, again, an observation. If you wouldn't mind, Ms. Reardon, pulling up slide 16, the Transit Operation Fund revenues, or I can ask you question about it. The operating revenues, could you just remind me, and I don't know if you have this at your fingertips, if not, you could email us. What were the bus fares providing us in FY21? Or I guess more likely to FY20 would be the year I guess we'd need to look at. I'm trying to remember that.
So looking at Q1, I was going to say I was looking at Q1 for the transit fund, and I think I have 2.7 million for operating revenues. This is
for the quarter.
For no, for the adopted budget.
Okay.
But
right.
I'm seeing that Mr. Allure has pulled up.
Oh yeah, great. Thank you, Mr.
Year. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So looking at revenues on the transit fund, I'm trying to find operating here.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the
for current services.
Gotcha. So adopted was 2.7 million. So colleagues, this is you all may have remembered this number better than I did, but this is the amount of money that we're foregoing by not charging fares, and we're covering it now. And I think it's great that we're covering it now, but I did want to just make note of that and say good for us. My other question, though, is around the same slide, slide 16, non-operating revenues. So there's the taxes, there is the grant revenue, and what is the miscellaneous again?
So miscellaneous is made up of vehicle license fees, which is about 2.8 million, Access County merger funding,
okay,
which is about 82,000. And then about 10.2 million of that is Durham Transit Authority.
Durham Transit Authority, where's that? What's the source of that? I don't understand what that is.
And I believe Sean Egan is here from the Transportation Department and could probably provide a little bit more guidance on what exactly that is.
Thanks.
Sure. So those are awards from the Durham.
I lost you, Mr. Egan. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Those are awards from the Durham County Transit Plan. They're primarily to enable to offer more frequent services on our routes.
Gotcha. Okay. Durham County Transit Plan. So the current is about, well, projected through year end is about 9.5 million, and not all of that. Some of it, as Ms. Reardon says, is other sources, but it looks like maybe in the sort of $7 million range might be from the Durham County Transit Plan.
That sounds, yeah. And then some of those services, because of staffing shortages, we won't be able to launch those services as scheduled this year. So actual will come in lower, and we only bill the county transit plan for the services that we provide.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Egan.
We've used different names in the past, but I think what you're accustomed to hearing, Mary, is the transit tax.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Lohr, and thank you, Mr. Egan. I got it now, and Ms. Reardon. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Colleagues, questions or comments for Ms. Reardon? Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, first of all, thank staff for the great presentation. It's good to know. As you said, I think we're in a much better situation financially than any of us had a right to believe we would be in November of 2021. And I know that a lot of that is because of the hard work our staff has done during the pandemic. So I want to thank them for that. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to follow up on the two of the things you raised. I'll go in the opposite order. First of all, with respect to the $2.7 million that were brought in through bus fares, that represents the hole we're going to need to fill if we want to keep our system fare free. And I know that I'm committed to working with staff and my colleagues on the council to try to find a way to make that happen. But I think the other thing we need to be well aware of is that it's not just $2.7 million. That once any system, including Go Durham, goes fare free, more people will begin to use it, and our expenses will also increase. It's difficult to know what that's going to look like until we unleash free fares in Durham in a non, or I guess post-COVID context. But that's something that we're going to have to be aware of, is that it's not just $2.7 million. What I should say is $2.7 million is the revenue side of the issue. But on the expense side, we're going to see more expenses because more people are going to be using our service. And we want that. We should want that. It's critical for our sustainability goals. It helps us reduce greenhouse gases. It makes our roads safer. But it has real world costs that we're going to have to grapple with in addition to the loss of the $2.7 million in revenue. With respect to the parking fund, Mr. Mayor, you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but our parking fund wasn't looking so great before the pandemic, as you know. We built a brand new parking deck, not very far from this particular location, at just exactly the time that a number of other private parking decks went up not too far from here. And before the pandemic, we were facing a lack of usage of our new parking deck, and many of our parking decks are structured parking facilities as a result of the fact that we went from a professed shortage of parking in downtown, a parking crisis, as I believe it was referred to in many quarters, to now something of a glut of structured parking. Whether it's close enough or convenient enough for some people or for a number of our business owners remains to be seen, but that's the reality we face now, is that we, especially before the pandemic, we were getting undercut on structured parking prices, and folks were voting with their feet and walking a little bit further and parking for a little bit cheaper. I don't know what the answers are to that problem, but it's one we're also going to have to grapple with. And I just wanted to kind of draw a line under that, that the parking situation, the situation in the parking fund wasn't awesome before the pandemic. We've got a shortfall that we're going to deal with, but longer term, we need to figure out better answers for how we pay for what we've deployed in the community in terms of structured parking, but also, but I will say that I like what we have done with the permanent outdoor dining ordinance, making on-street parking spaces available for some other use. But there again, each of those spaces is a revenue source we no longer have. And so we're going to have to figure out how to square that circle somehow. It almost certainly means that folks are going to have to start paying more for structured parking and on-street parking. How we do that in a way that keeps faith with our values is something that I know our staff is working on, and I look forward to working with them and with my colleagues on finding the right answers for Durham on that difficult challenge. But otherwise, this report looks fantastic. I'm really happy, and it unlocks the possibility to do a lot of things in our next budget, and I hope we can all work together to make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Other comments and questions, colleagues? Anybody else on the budget report? All right, Ms. Reardon, thank you. We really appreciate you. Mr. Allure, thank you for your leadership, and thank you all so much for this excellent report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe, Madam Manager, we don't have any appointments today, so I won't, as usual, accidentally skip them. And we will move on to settling the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the agenda, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, I have items 1 through 3 and items 6 through 16 for consent, and item 18 and 19 on the GBA public hearings.
Thank you very much, Madam Manager. Colleagues, you have heard the manager's recommendation to settle the agenda, and I'll accept a motion for its approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Reese, that we will settle the agenda per the manager's recommendations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Colleagues, I'm going to hit this gavel for the last time.
Do it.
Meeting is adjourned at 3:36.
You're here.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
It's been our pleasure.
We'll see you down there. We'll see. Not too often. But I'll see you all on
Either leave it.